All right, welcome back, class. So in these next few slides and in this video, we're going to talk in a little more detail about linear versus polarized ranges. So remember, when we were talking about linear ranges, we don't have any bluffs in our range. It's all value bets. And when we're polarized, we include bluffs in addition to our value bets. So I had this image put together on the screen for you, and it's really a bit of a process flow. So in three betting, we have two different types. We have both our linear and polarized ranges. And when we're talking about linear, we're talking about value bets. And then again, when we're talking about polarized, we're talking about a combination of value bets and bluffs. So let's go ahead and let's examine first linear ranges in a bit more detail. So here's an example of a linear three betting range: pocket jacks, pocket queens, pocket kings, pocket aces, ace queen suited, and ace king. You'll notice first off that this range is composed entirely of value bets. So we don't have any bluffs in here. When we're three betting this against somebody, we assume that we have a better hand than what their pre-flop raise opening range is. So we are clearly only three betting for value here, and we're not three betting as a bluff. And this is the type of range that I typically recommend beginners start out with. They start out with a linear three betting range. Now, it doesn't need to compose all these hands, but I typically recommend you start out by three betting linear ranges, and then as you improve your game and you're more comfortable with bluffing, then you jump towards the next type of ranges, which are polarized three betting ranges. So again, look at this example that we have here on the screen. This example highlights how drastically different this is from the previous example. We have some value hands up here, and we have tons of bluffs in here. So a polarized three betting range is a combination of value hands and bluffs. It's not one or the other, it's a combination of both. So when you are polarizing your three betting range, your opponents don't know if you're three betting for value or you're three betting as a bluff. And there's reasons why we choose these hands, and I'll talk about this in a later lecture. But just understand that a polarized three betting range is going to be composed of value hands and bluffs. So again, like I said, sometimes we're value betting and sometimes we're bluffing. However, our opponents ideally are not going to know if we're value betting or if we're bluffing. And so that's the whole point behind betting a polarized range. And there's, like I said, there's specific reasons why we're going to use hands like these, and hands like these to three bet for a bluff rather than three betting for value. And I'm going to talk about that later in the course when we talk about the mathematics behind three betting. Now, let's talk a bit further about linear versus polarized. And let's just do a quick introduction here. And then after this, in the next screen, or in the next video, I'm going to talk in more detail about this. So the question is, do I bet linear or do I three bet polarized? Which one is going to be the type of three bet that I should use? You're going to find that in a lot of forums, people are going to they're going to say, look, it's 2016, the game has changed, you need to be three betting a polarized range. You have to have bluffs within your range. Well, I completely disagree with that blanketed statement, because sometimes it's going to be more ideal to three bet a linear range, and other times it's going to be more ideal to three bet a polarized range. And it's really situational. It depends upon your opponent in the situation. You can't make a blanketed statement and say you need to be putting bluffs within your three betting range, or you should just be three betting aces and kings and three betting linear range. And neither statement is true. It's really dependent upon the situation and dependent upon your opponents, whether you should be three betting as a linear range or as a polarized range. So let's walk through. I have another process flow diagram on here. So when we're three betting, our first decision really comes to this. We need to ask ourselves, what type of opponent are we playing against, and what is their initial range like? And how likely are they to call a three bet, or how likely are they to four bet us, or how likely are they to fold? So if our opponent is folding a lot to three bets, let's say our opponent is folding, 80% to three bets, which is, a bit to the extreme, but you'll see that a lot at the lower stakes where people fear three bets. So let's say, first off, we have a lot of fold equity. Our opponent is folding to 80% of three bets. Well, if our opponent is folding to a ton of 3-bets, then it makes sense for us to include some bluffs within our 3-betting range, because we can 3-bet them as a bluff and take down their money pre-flop when they're 3 big blinds they opened and when the small blind and the big blind is money as well. So if that's the case, then we definitely need to be 3-betting a polarized range. That includes value bets and bluffs. Now let's switch it around. Let's switch this around. Let's say that we have somebody that's either a complete maniac or they are a calling station, and we don't expect them to fold 3-bets. Let's say they've only folded to 10% of 3-bets. Then what in the world should we 3-bet against somebody that's not folding the 3-bets? Should we be bluffing them? No, we shouldn't be bluffing them because they're not going to fold. So what should we do? Well, we need to 3-bet a linear range that's composed of our value hands. And so hopefully you're seeing a picture here. When we have high fold equity, we can bluff. When we have low fold equity, then we can't bluff. And that's going to bring us into a good introduction point to segue into the next lecture. We're going to talk a bit more about considerations for linear versus polarized ranges. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next lecture.